So for this class, you'll need a blanket and a block if you have one. And tonight we'll go ahead and get started in child's pose. So if you have your blanket, you can fold it in half a few times, just enough to fold on your lap. Your knees are apart, your feet are together. And you can start to fold over your blanket, just getting a little bit more space at the front of the hips, and start to walk your hands out away from you. And you can rest your forehead on the ground, and maybe you press your hands into the ground, pressing your hips back towards your heels. And go ahead and close your eyes and start to ground down here. Start to deepen your breath. Maybe you walk your fingertips a little bit further away from you and find a little bit more space at the shoulders, lengthening the back of the torso. And as you start to deepen your breath, start to create more space at the back of the body. Take a few more breaths just to come into your space. Maybe you start to soften the muscles of the face, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. And we'll slowly start to move here. You can walk your hands back towards your face, pressing into the mat, slowly rolling up one vertebrae at a time. Your head comes up last. And then taking your blanket, maybe folding it over one more time, place it under your seat. So this time bringing your knees together, heels apart. You're sitting on your blanket, your hips are slightly elevated. And then slowly start to bring and walk your hands behind you. And you can walk further back, maybe coming down onto your forearms until you start to feel that stretch in the front of the legs at the quads. And from here, try not to add any tension to your neck and shoulders. Maybe you allow your head to drop back. Wherever you are, take a few breaths. Breathing into the front part of the body. And if your head is dropped back, slowly start to curl yourself back up, coming back onto your hands if you're on your forearms, and walking yourself back to a neutral seat. I'm going to turn to face you. So today we'll work our way up to crow pose, Bakasana. So we'll be opening the hips, the quads, strengthening the core and the forearm muscles so that we can get into that pose. So we'll start with some wrist and forearm strengthening exercises, bringing the arms over your head, elbows are straight, fingers pointing straight up to the ceiling, and just start to flash your fingers. And after a few flashes or maybe a few breaths here, you'll start to warm up your fingers, your hands, your wrists, your forearms. Maybe it starts to burn. Really bending and straightening your fingers. Elbows, keep them straight. The muscles of your arms are really starting to turn on. Keep breathing here, finding length in your torso, long arms. Take a few more deep breaths. And then start to shake your wrists out, bringing your arms back down by your sides. Then from here, we'll stretch the front of the forearms. So coming into a tabletop, your hands are underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Flip your palms so that your fingers are facing back towards your knees. Your wrists are facing away from you. And you can gently start to sit your hips back, getting a nice stretch in the front of the forearms. And maybe you close your eyes, tune into your breath, and notice where you're feeling this. Keeping the fingers spread apart, maybe backing off for a moment and shake out the wrists. Maybe you try to flip the wrists in the opposite direction. So putting the back of the hands down on the ground. Your hands are still underneath your shoulders, and then sitting back towards your heels this way. Keep remembering to connect back to your breath. Slowly start to shift your hips back forward, flip your wrists. And then from here, just to find a little bit more mobility in the wrists, your fingers are pointing forward away from you under your shoulders. You can start to make circles with your shoulders over your wrists, massaging the palms of the hands on the ground, separating the fingers away from each other. Getting a sense of the range of motion in your wrists. So start to circle in the opposite direction. Also warming up the hips, the spine, the shoulders when we do this. Coming to a neutral tabletop position, we'll take a couple of cat-cows here. So rounding your tailbone under, tucking your tailbone, hug your belly button towards your spine, press the hands away from you, the shoulder blades grow apart and your chin tucks towards your chest. Press the air out of your lungs. On an inhale, your tailbone goes back, belly sinks down towards the floor, your shoulder blades can come together. Look up, inhale. Take a few more like this, rounding the spine, pressing the floor away from you. Exhale. Inhale, drop the belly, look up. Take a few more with your own breath. On your next inhale, coming back to a neutral spine, neutral tabletop position. And I'm just gonna go over a little bit of the posture for crow to look forward to. So when you come into angry cat and you tuck your tailbone under, pressing your hands into the ground and you're rounding your upper back, this is the type of position you want your arms and your upper back to be in when you come into your crow. So your shoulder blades are pressing away from each other and your arms are strong, pressing into the mat. The opposite of that would be to allow your belly to sink down towards the ground, your shoulder blades squeeze together. So rounding your upper back, pressing the floor away from you, versus squeezing the shoulder blades together on your back, sinking the belly towards the floor. From here, shift your hips back towards your heels. Press your hands away from you and slowly start to lift your knees off the ground. Activate your legs, activate your core. And you can start to slowly straighten the back of the legs, reaching the heels back, the hips reach high towards the ceiling. And connect back to your breath, whether the knees are bent here or the legs are straight. Just do what you need to do to find your downward dog. And walk out your dog, bending one knee and then the other. And when you're ready, slowly start to walk your feet towards your hands, bending your knees as much as you need to, bringing your feet about hips distance apart or wider. You can have your knees bent here, your torso drapes over your legs, head hangs heavy. You can shake your head yes or no, just releasing any tension in your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Just take a few breaths here. Maybe your hands stay on the ground, or you can grab opposite elbows coming into ragdoll. You can sway side to side here, finding length in the sides of the torso. So finding stillness here or wiggling around, doing what you need to do. On your next exhale, bend your knees, your hands come float back down to the ground, your head is heavy. And then slowly roll up one vertebrae at a time, tucking your tailbone under. Your head will come up last until you're standing straight and tall. Inhale, your arms reach up over your head. Exhale, cactus your arms like you're standing at TSA. Squeezing your shoulder blades down your back. Look up to where the wall meets the ceiling. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, cactus your arms. One more time. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, cactus your arms. Inhale, reach your arms up. Spin your heels and toes out. Feet are a bit wider than hips distance apart. And then sink into a squat. So you'll bring your elbows to your knees or the back of your triceps to your knees, depending on how deep you want to go. And then bringing your hands to your heart center, press your hands together, creating a little bit more tension at the hips. So you're pressing your knees away from you with the back of your arms. And then at the same time, see if you can squeeze your knees into the back of your arms. And then connect back to your breath. You can close your eyes here. Just notice where you're feeling this. Inhale to create a little bit more space. Maybe you lengthen the back of the neck. And exhale to release any tension that you're holding. Take one more deep inhale. Exhale, release any tension. Let the hands float down towards the ground. Raise the hips, come back into that forward fold, spinning your toes back forward. Slowly roll up one vertebrae at a time. Inhale, your arms come up, reach up. Exhale to cactus your arms. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale to fold forward. Knees can be straight or bent. Inhale to a halfway lift. Bring your hands to your shins. Lengthen the back of your neck. Strong back, soft front. Exhale, planting the hands, step back to a plank pose here. And stay in plank for just a moment, pressing the hands into the ground. Round the upper back and let the shoulder blades slide away from each other. See if you can sink the hips slightly, tucking the tailbone under. Connect back to your breath. And exhale, shift forward and lower all the way down onto your belly. Untuck the toes, press the hands into the mat. Bring the chest up, the head comes back, inhale. Exhale, float back down, coming back to tabletop or pressing back to downward dog. Take a few breaths here. You can take cat-cow, or you can find your downward dog. Finding length at the back of the legs, pressing the hands away from you, finding length in the arms, the torso. And if you're in downward dog, go ahead and lower your knees, coming back into your tabletop. So making sure that your hands are underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Lengthen your right leg back behind you. Hug everything in towards your center as you squeeze your right knee in towards your right elbow, maybe up towards your right armpit. Lengthen your leg behind you. And exhale, squeeze your knee into the back of your arm. And keep rounding those shoulders, the upper back. So pressing the hands away from you, rounding the upper back, squeezing the knee into the back of the arm. One more time. Inhale, lengthen the leg. Exhale to squeeze it in and hold. Pressing the arm into the knee into the back of the arm. And then go ahead and lower your right knee down. We'll go towards the other side, lengthening the left leg back behind you. And exhale, squeeze that left knee into the back of your left arm, to the back of your elbow or up towards your armpit. Inhale, lengthen the left leg. And exhale, squeeze it in, engaging the core, using the muscles at the hip flexor, pressing the hands into the ground. Two more times, lengthening the leg behind you. Exhale, hug in towards your center. One more time, lengthen the leg behind you. And squeeze it in towards your armpit, rounding the upper back, pressing the knee into the elbow into the knee, and then lowering that left knee down. Maybe you sit back, shake out the wrists. And when you're ready, you can come into either a child's pose or a downward facing dog for a few breaths. And if you're in child's pose, find your way to your downward facing dog. And slowly walking your feet towards your hands. Your knees can be bent, drape your torso over your legs. Hang out in ragdoll. Release the tension in your shoulders, your neck. Slowly start to roll up one vertebrae at a time. Inhale, your arms come up overhead. Exhale to cactus the arms. Inhale, arms reach up. Your toes point out, heels come in, we'll come back into Malasana squat. So rounding the upper back, press the elbows into the knees into the elbows, bringing your hands to heart center. Taking a moment here to find that deep stretch in your hips. And from Malasana here, we'll make our way into crow pose. So I can demonstrate and then you can try, or we can do it together. There are two variations I can show. So in your Malasana, bring your hands down to the mat. Come up onto your toes and lift your hips up and start to shift your weight forward. Your elbows can be bent slightly, creating a shelf for your knees. Your toes can walk in towards each other if that makes it a little bit easier. Slowly starting to shift forward, rounding the upper back. You can pick one toe up and then the other, keeping the gaze about a foot in front of you. If you're having trouble finding your balance or want to use a block here, step up onto your block or your stack of books, if that works, or try your blanket folded. Your toes squeeze together, knees come apart, hands coming down onto the ground about a foot in front of you, gaze about a foot ahead of your fingertips. Squeeze the knees into the back of the arms press into the back of the knees, slowly shifting your weight forward over your hands. Trust yourself, pressing the ground away from you, rounding the upper back, and lowering your toes back onto the ground when you're ready to back off. So you can try this once or twice more, coming at it from a different angle. So if your elbows are super bent, you can just create a shelf here. And maybe you just lift up one toe and then try to lift up the other, squeezing the knee into the back of the arm. And then maybe you try both toes. And when you're ready to back off, bring the feet about hip distance apart, bend the knees, fold the body over the legs. Shake the head, yes and no. Maybe you sway the arms side to side. Slowly roll the body back up to stand. Inhale, arms reach up, look up. Exhale, come back into your squat. And from here, we'll transition onto our seated postures. I'm just going to turn to face you. So now that you're seated, come into Baddha Konasana. Seal the bottoms of the feet together, the knees go wide into butterfly. Hang on to your ankles. Shrug the shoulders up, back, and down, and present the heart forward. And slowly exhale, bending the elbows back towards your hips. The front of your chest starts to slowly melt down towards the ground. Getting a stretch in the psoas muscle. Keep your shoulder blades together on your back. So the opposite of what we were just doing in crow pose. And tuck the chin, round the back, and slowly start to come back up to a neutral seat. Hug the knees together, and then rock back onto your back. You can take a few rocks here if that feels good. Just massaging out the sides of the back of the spine. And then when you're ready, coming to lay on your back, hugging your knees in towards your chest. Maybe the knees start to come in towards your armpits. You can sway your body side to side, massaging the back of your body. And maybe you stay in happy baby here, or reach up to grab the outer edges of your feet. Hugging the knees into the armpits, getting a deeper hip stretch here. Maybe you close your eyes and start to deepen your breath. Softening your muscles, finding ease in happy baby. When you're ready, you can hug your knees in towards your belly, curl your forehead up towards your knees, squeeze everything in towards your center. And exhale, release your legs out long, your arms are out long beside you. Coming into a quick Shavasana, letting everything settle from our clarifying flow. And while you're laying here, take one more deep breath in through your nose. Fill up your lungs. Hold it at the top. And exhale through your mouth. Let it all go. Let gravity take over. Knowing that when you move from this position, you can move with clarity. Having a transition between your work life and your home life. And slowly start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Start to walk your heels back in towards your hips. Maybe you give yourself a hug one more time. Forehead coming to your knees. Rolling off to one side, pressing your hands into the ground, helping yourself sit back up. You can cross your legs in front of you, placing your hands on your knees. Shrug your shoulders up, back and down. Tuck your chin slightly and find length at the back of the neck. We'll take one last collective breath together. Inhale through your nose. Grow tall. Hold it at the top. And exhale, let it go. And have a good evening.